Max Lieberman and dozens of other artists whose names the German government refused to release. Germany's hiding of this find represented an egregious violation of the Washington Principles, a set of international regulations agreed to by Germany in 1998 intended to facilitate the return of Nazi-looted property to Hitler's victims. The journal asked me to investigate the case and write a page-1 article on the lives of Hildebrand and Cornelius Gurlitt within 72 hours, 10 of which would be consumed by travel. On the airplane, I contemplated the implications the story would have for Germany, the art world, and my career. I dozed in my cramped coach seat, preparing for several nights' slumber under my desk in the journal's bureau, located across from the German parliament. I had recently turned 26 years old. Little did I know that I was embarking on a 5-year project that would confirm that the wounds of World War II were hardly healed, and clearly demonstrate that the German government was ill-prepared to deal with this problem of international proportions. On 9 November 2013, I published my first page-1 article on the Gurlitt family for the Wall Street Journal, focusing on Hildebrand Gurlitt, the man who had been part of the elite group rounding up art across Europe in the 1940s. What I uncovered for that article, and over the next several months, was so bizarre, so cinematic, that even hardened Manhattan editors expressed astonishment at the Gurlitt family's history, and consternation at the German government's blasé response. In February 2012, Hildebrand's son, Cornelius Gurlitt, an elderly, reclusive bachelor, had been resting in his apartment in Munich when he heard a sharp rap on the door. Within minutes, German tax investigators raided his house. Cornelius had caught their attention months before while transporting 9,000 euros in crisp 500-euro banknotes on a high-speed train from Switzerland. Because this amount was under 10,000 euros, he was not required to declare it. But Cornelius's use of 500-euro notes, commonly used for money laundering in Europe, had aroused suspicion. Raiding Cornelius's apartment, authorities were astonished to find roughly 1,200 artworks piled up like old newspapers in every nook and cranny. Cornelius had taken one Matisse painting, Woman with a Fan, a portrait of a pale-skinned brunette, and shoved it into a crate of tomatoes. On his living room wall hung Lieberman's Two Riders on the Beach, a charming depiction of two equestrians and their horses on sun-dappled sand. Officials confiscated all of the artworks, but did not disclose their existence to the international community. German public servants' callous lack of transparency with the press and public about an issue as delicate as art looted during the Holocaust was impossible to ignore. After my New York flight landed in Berlin, I learned that the government's tax prosecutor, Reinhard Nemetz, had given the government's one and only press conference about the Gurlitts in a provincial Bavarian town while I and many other journalists were still in transit. He had argued that determining whether these works had been stolen from museums or Jews was not his job. He only aimed to have them appraised to ensure Gurlitt paid taxes. German officials bucked the question of whether it was ethical to ignore the fact that many of the artworks had probably been looted from museums or Holocaust victims, stating that this was not germane to their predicament. They pointed out in a shockingly tone-deaf manner, echoing the views of many enablers of the Nazis, that their behavior was legally proper. Its morality was irrelevant. This approach was not the exception among German public servants. It was the rule. When I contacted federal officials, including Chancellor Angela Merkel's primary spokesman, they refused to comment or even nominally address the worries of the Jewish community leaders with whom I was in touch, declaring the finding of the largest trove of art belonging to one of Hitler's henchmen a local issue. The scandal subsequently spilled into the international art world as it became clear that a professor from Berlin's prestigious Freie Universität was researching the artworks at the government's behest. Yet the government did not ask her to determine if they were not